Have you ever stood on the edge of a diving board? Your toes are curled over the edge. The water below looks calm and inviting. Everything in you wants to jump, to feel that moment of flight, that refreshing splash. But something holds you back. A voice, a whisper. What if you belly flop? What if the water is too cold? What if everyone laughs? And so you stand there, paralyzed, until you quietly turn around and walk away. For 38 years, my entire life was that diving board. My name is Leo, and I was a master of walking away. My world was a fortress I had built to protect myself. The walls were made of routine, the guards were my excuses, and the ruling monarch was a quiet, relentless fear. My apartment was neat, predictable. My route to work never changed. The sandwich I ate for lunch was always the same: turkey and Swiss on rye, no mustard. Mustard was too unpredictable. At my job as a data analyst, I was good, I was reliable, and I was completely invisible. I sat in my cubicle, the sterile hum of the servers my only constant companion. I saw problems in the data nobody else saw. I wrote code that streamlined entire processes. But when it came to meetings, my voice would vanish. My brilliant ideas would die in my throat as I watched louder, more confident colleagues present far inferior concepts. I wanted more. Oh, how I wanted more. I wanted the senior analyst position that had been vacant for months. I deserved it. My work proved it. Every night I would draft the email to my boss, rehearse the conversation in my head. But every morning, the voice would greet me. What if he says no? What if he thinks you're arrogant for asking? You'll be humiliated. It's safer to just keep quiet, do good work. Someone will notice eventually. But they never did. The promotion went to a guy named Todd. Todd was loud, he was charming, and his understanding of the data was, to put it mildly, superficial. I knew this because I had spent the last 6 months quietly fixing his mistakes. The day they announced his promotion, something inside me didn't just break, it evaporated. That night, my fortress felt like a prison. The silence was deafening. My predictable routine was a cage. I looked around at my life, so carefully constructed to avoid failure, and I was hit by a devastating realization. I hadn't avoided failure. I was living it. My entire existence was a failure to live. The next day, I didn't go to work. I called in sick and walked to a park. I just needed to be somewhere else. I sat on a bench, watching the world I had so skillfully avoided, and I saw an old man, probably in his 80s, trying to fly a kite. It was a clumsy affair. The kite was cheap, the wind was fickle. He'd run a few steps, the kite would lurch into the air, and then immediately nosedive into the grass. He wasn't frustrated. He didn't look embarrassed. He would just chuckle, walk over, pick it up, and try again. Run, lurch, nosedive, chuckle, repeat. I watched him for nearly an hour. He failed 20, maybe 30 times. But he was smiling. He was trying. He was engaged in a battle with the wind, and he was enjoying the fight, not just the outcome. And then it hit me with the force of a physical blow. That old man, in his simple, repetitive failure, was living more in that 1 hour than I had in the last 10 years. His 50 tiny, harmless failures were infinitely better than my one giant, soul-crushing success at avoiding them. The voice in my head started its usual chant. See, trying is pointless. You just fail. But for the first time, another, quieter voice answered it. So what? What if you fail? The fear screamed. So what? He did, and he's fine. He's laughing. What if they say no? So what? At least you'll have an answer. What if you get embarrassed? Is that feeling worse than this gray, silent numbness I feel right now? Is a moment of embarrassment worse than a lifetime of regret? No, it wasn't. I finally understood. The pain I was trying to avoid, the imagined rejection, the potential embarrassment, was a ghost. It wasn't real. But the pain of my inaction, the loneliness, the regret, that was real. That was the slow-acting poison I had been drinking every day. I had been so afraid of the monster in the dark that I had locked myself in a coffin to hide from it. I went home. I didn't write a grand resignation letter. I didn't confront Todd. I did something much smaller and much, much harder. The next morning, on my way to work, I stopped at the coffee shop I had been going to for 3 years. Every day, the same barista, a kind woman named Clara, would ask, "The usual, Leo?" I would nod, pay, and leave without making eye contact. But not today. When she asked, I looked her in the eye and smiled, a real smile. "Yes, please, Clara. And you know what? Thank you for remembering it every day. I appreciate it." It was a tiny thing, but it felt like I had just climbed a mountain. She looked surprised, and then her own smile broke out, a real, warm smile. "You're welcome, Leo. Have a great day." For the first time, I walked out of that shop feeling a connection, not just a transaction. That tiny victory was the first domino. At work, in a meeting when Todd presented a flawed plan, I didn't stay silent. My heart was pounding, my palms were sweating, but I raised my hand. "I see a potential issue with the data set in the third quarter, but I think there's a simple fix." The room went quiet. My boss looked at me, truly looked at me for the first time in years, and he said, "Go on." I didn't change the world that day, but I changed my world, one so what at a time. I started having lunch with colleagues. I updated my resume, not out of anger, but out of excitement for what else might be out there. I didn't ask my boss for a promotion. I scheduled a meeting and asked him what the path to a leadership role looked like. I presented a plan, not a complaint. It's been a year since my day in the park. I'm no longer at that company. I lead a small team of analysts at a new firm. Some days, the old voice of fear still whispers. It never truly goes away, but now I know its secret. I know it's a liar. It screams about the pain of a fall, but never mentions the agony of never trying to fly. The fear of failure is a ghost story we tell ourselves, but the regret of inaction is a true monster that will haunt you for the rest of your days. It's the story of the life you never lived, the person you never became, the connections you never made. So ask yourself, what diving board are you standing on right now? What is the voice whispering to you? Maybe it's time to answer it with 2 simple, powerful words. So what? And then, jump. Thank you for your time.